You are listening to 99.1 WQRT LP Indianapolis, and this is Create Here. Produced by artists and curators from Big Car Collaborative, Create Here is your place to listen to conversations with people making intriguing, innovative, and impactful things happen on the cultural front in Indianapolis, Indiana, and beyond. Find out more and access additional episodes at WQRT.org.
Hello, I am Kimi Katada, a curator with Charlotte Street Foundation based in Kansas City, Missouri. On this episode of Create Here, I am interviewing visual artist Amy Kligman. Her exhibition, Shrines of the Luminous Halo, opens November 7th. So I'll just start out with a brief bio for Amy, just to give listeners a sense of her work. Amy Kligman was executive artistic director at Charlotte Street from 2015 to 2024. Kligman's career and experience as an exhibiting artist and grassroots curator spans 20 years of studio and exhibition work, independent curating and organizing, and artist-run projects. In 2011, Kligman was one of a team of 5 artist curators who established Plug Projects, an artist-run space in Kansas City's West Bottoms. Amy's work is in the permanent collection of the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art, the Hallmark Corporate Fine Art Collection, and in the homes of private collectors across the country. Her immersive installation, The Salon for Possible Futures, is on view at the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art in Overland Park, Kansas, through December of 2026. She is represented by Sherry Leedy Fine Art in Kansas City, Missouri, and is currently teaching at the Kansas City Art Institute. Yay, welcome, Amy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. And I thought we'd start out with a little bit of background into your artistic journey and just thinking through, when was the moment you knew you were going to be an artist?
I mean, I don't know if I ever had a cognizant thought that I wouldn't be an artist. So, I mean, like growing up, I definitely was always making work and, whatever that looks like when you're 6 or 8 or 12, and I definitely think that for a lot of my high school time, my emphasis was not necessarily on making or being an artist, being a fine artist. Like I thought I would be a commercial artist because I wanted a job job and I wanted to have, dollars. And, I didn't really know that being a artist was a thing. Like I grew up in a really rural place and, I knew a lot of people who I would now call artists, right? But I don't know if they identified as artists. And I definitely don't think many of them were getting paid for what they did, So there was probably like a journey in finding a path to, being a professional artist of some kind, right? I do remember when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to go to art school. That was like a thing, and that was a discovery of its own because, I didn't know anybody who had done that. And I remember my high school counselor telling me that I was going to bankrupt my entire family by by going to art school. And she was just kind of like, I don't know why you would do that. And but I remember like my reaction was kind of like, no, I'm absolutely going to do that. And I didn't have any like hesitations. I also had really supportive family. My parents were really supportive. And I feel like they were like, well, if you're all in on this, we're all in on this. So I was lucky that way. But yeah, I don't know. And I think the point at which I realized that being a commercial artist wasn't going to be enough for me came pretty quickly after graduating. I had a job as a kind of like a technical artist for American Greetings, which is a greeting card company in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was doing it was technical setup of gift wrap design. And, it's like I was happy to have a job, but I wasn't feeling particularly creative about it. And so I was going to gallery shows and I discovered this gallery that I really liked, and there was a empty space next door to it. And I started renting that space as a studio. That was my first studio. And I was like, okay, well, I'm never not going to have a studio again. This is exactly what I want. So maybe that was the first step to being, something closer to a quote unquote real artist.
Yes. For sure. That's when it all came together. Yeah, I was thinking back to your Share Lady exhibition offerings. And in this show, you speak about matrilineal wisdom and inheriting ideas from your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother. And yeah, I was just curious about how these ideas of feminine power play into the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about like generations period, and like kind of generations of like what we inherit like as people in the world right now, from like what came before us, and I guess specifically through a matrilineal lens, like I think about women and sort of like the boundaries that have been placed on women and like the access that women had or didn't have. And, when I think about my own family history, like I think the women in my family were, again, like I said, very creative, like very entrepreneurial, very industrious, like people that really like made it work. But I think they were also like almost always dealing with just these boundaries and, limitations that I think that, maybe I saw my mother pushing against those within the context of like her life in her small town where we grew up. And then, I had my own way of like pushing against that. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's at the hyper personal level. And then there's sort of the level of that within art history, or the level of that within political history. And I'm thinking about all of those things too, and how we get to this present moment, which we're all trying to figure out how to operate within. And I feel like there's so much to be learned from the past and the way that people have been able to make progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's slow. It's happening.
It's happening. We all wish it were happening faster, but I think there's something about like seeing how people did persevere and how people did, keep at situations that felt impossible and felt like, an actual wall was there. And in a lot of cases, there was an actual wall there. And still like we people, humanity was able to like, make some sort of advance. So I guess that's the hope that I cling to, while in the other hand holding a lot of cynicism and a lot of critique and a lot of, angst. Like, oh yeah, there's like a whole range of people that like I go back and I think about like, I don't know, like this, like the Judy Chicago painting, for example, is one that I don't even think people would recognize as a Judy Chicago. Like it's not her most famous work. But the reason why I chose that painting is that it's called Heaven is for White Men. And I'm like, when she made that painting, I mean, it was a political time, like people were talking about it, but I just feel like that it just got completely lost in like the swath of like everything else that was going on. And now I'm like, well, this is the conversation that people are having, like really like big and in public. And I don't know. I go back to that and I'm like, well, how do we receive this now? Oh, the first one that I ever did was Hilma F. Klimt. Oh, yes. And I feel like, she's another artist that, in her time, like was literally like, nobody's even going to understand this work right now. Like I'm fine with dying and nobody ever even seeing it. And I mean, I just think that's thinking about maternal wisdom or whatever. I'm like, here is a woman who just like knew, like, you know what? Nobody's going to get this now. Like, let's just put it in a closet for like, 50 years at least. And then, maybe someday. And then, when it does come out, it's like, oh, this is revolutionary. And like, so I don't know. Those are some of the references that are happening in there, but they're happening alongside, these other kinds of references that are, again, like more personal or more maybe those are references that people in like art history or art circles would get. And then there are references that nobody would get unless they happen to like grow up with me, or, like I don't even think my husband doesn't understand. Like a lot of times he's standing in front of these paintings and he's a painter too, but he'll be like, I don't know what this is. Why is this here? And he's like trying to like unlock it somehow. And I always feel like I want to tell people, like, you don't actually have to know. Like, just like the reason why I put all those things together is to create a space that is somehow imbued with all those things, all those thoughts and all those histories. And I feel like that charges it in a way, but I don't feel like a person needs to know all the references to like sort of receive what I hope is like a space that is kind of like a safe space or a sanctuary that results, you know?
Yeah. And I think the way that the paintings too include like just a multiplicity of different reference points and visual cues that like the different audience members can really like interpret it and kind of pull different things that relate to them personally.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of different kinds of entry points. And I want that for those paintings. I mean, I can't say that when I'm making a painting, I'm thinking about like the audience, like what will the audience think or what will the audience say, or, you know, but I'm mostly working through my own thoughts and narratives, right? But in the aftermath of a painting being done, when I'm looking at it, I like feeling that, you know, folks from my hometown could come and see these paintings and they would get something out of it. Folks from my art college would be able to see these paintings and they would get something out of it. And total strangers to me could walk up to these paintings and hopefully, you know, that they would find a space that they could respond to, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing that I think a lot about is the artist talk that you did at the Nerman Museum of Contemporary Art back in March of this year, when they opened the Salon for Possible Futures. So one thing that you were saying in the artist talk was when you were speaking about plug projects, the artist-run space, that art is equally as important as the community. And that's something that I thought was so beautiful and I carry with me and I think a lot about. So could you share a little bit about the ways that you build community in our kind of shared area of Kansas City and how you build these spaces for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what I was talking about in that talk was just how important artist communities are to me. And, you know, I think that I really have found that I feel the most myself when I am in art community. And I find that those spaces don't happen by accident. They have to be like really intentionally fostered, you know? And so it's been really important to me because I've been in places where they didn't exist and I've been in places where they did. And the dramatic difference of like what feels possible in a place where artists exist is it's huge. It's like it just like the sense of imagination is what opens up possibility. And I feel like a place without artists is sort of like a place without imagination, and that's just like depressing. And so anyway, yes, I have found that like being a part of creating artist space is as much a part of my practice as anything. And you know, when I think about Big Car and what really attracted me to Tube Factory and like the idea of doing work with the Big Car folks is that every time that I've been there, like I have felt this really dramatic sense of community and like a desire for creating that kind of a space. And it's not just about putting the art objects on the wall. It's about like creating a space that has like an artistic energy. And I love that about it. And, you know, I'm really happy and excited to be a part of it in some small way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that one idea thinking through the time with Plug, I was like, was so formative to the artist run scene of Kansas City because it was so early on in these artist run spaces that has really sustained itself. It has been long running now for, I was like, that was 2015, was it?
I think it was, well, maybe 2011.
2011.
Yeah, I think
Oh my
Plug
gosh.
started in 2011 because
Okay.
I think I went to Charlotte Street in 2015.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2011 to now, Plug is still going. Yeah. And I think I really love their aspect, too, of shared authorship and how there are multiple curatorial voices at work. And I was curious about thinking through some of the benefits and perhaps challenges of having these multiple curators in the space too.
Yeah. So the original model of Plug, and it's shifted a little bit because and this was intentional. Like when we designed Plug, we kind of designed it to be like there as a platform that would be what the people that were there needed at the time, right? So it could change and it could flex, and that was part of the goal. But when we were there, and we were there, I say we, myself and the original Plug team, were there for like the first 4 years, and then I left and to go to Charlotte Street, and Corey Imig, who was also left at about the same time, and that's when they started having like a rotating kind of crew of directors. But our model was to have everybody bring their ideas, like artists, and we started with artists, so it was like everybody brought artists to the table that they were excited about. And they could also bring show ideas or show themes, but you could only do that if you could also show artists. Like it was like you couldn't come in with an idea that was like, oh, I want to do a show about circus or whatever, and then like not have a backbone of like, here are the local artists who would be a part of that, and here's some artists from outside that we think would add to the conversation. And so anyway, we would always come together. And it was a collaborative decision-making model. And it was like no one person had a bigger say than the other. And it was great. I learned so much through that process. Consensus building is really hard. And there are a lot of times that we would be in meetings for hours, or like we did most of our deciding about the actual exhibitions in a retreat that we did once a year. And we kind of planned the whole year of shows in this retreat. And it was kind of exhausting, but also like really exhilarating to be a part of those like conversations. And I feel like we learned a lot, so I don't know. I have since that experience, which wasn't always super easy. And yeah, I mean, like, I think any group of people, like, you can expect to have conflicts of some kind, like, especially if people care about it, So, I mean, we weren't always in perfect agreement about things, but I just feel like that was like probably the healthiest experience I've ever had with collaborative decision making and like, kind of thinking as a group. And I don't know. And I really carry it with me, like everywhere I go. When I was at Charlotte Street, I think we tried really hard to think about what group decision making looked like in that space. And, I'm not like with any particular entity right now. I'm mostly independent, but I mean, even within teaching, and I teach now, like, I feel like we have a lot of conversations like as a group and as a room, and it's really important to be respectful of, where everybody's coming from. And I just think that's good. That's good for life, like not just for Plug and not just for art spaces, but for life.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and I guess we'll bring it over to Big Car. So excited about how this exhibition is going to be installed, and your relationship with the Big Car team goes back several years. So could you share a little bit about how we were first introduced to the incredible work of Big Car?
Yeah, I mean, actually, gosh, it was a long time ago. I was trying to think about this the other day. I feel like I hadn't been at Charlotte Street for very long. I think I had been there for maybe 2 years or something like that when there was an artist who was from Kansas, who had gone to school in Kansas City, who was living in Indianapolis at the time, that introduced us. And Shouta and Jim came out to Kansas City on a visit, and I met them while they were here. And that was before Charlotte Street had the new building. So it was like, I mean, I don't know, was that 2013, something like that? And they were here for the big, like, Open Spaces, which was that big, like, biennial that happened in Kansas City. So they were here for that. And I met them then, and I was like, these guys are great. And then, we did some work together with Midway. I came out, I was a juror for the grants, the Warhol grants that they do, the regranting, which was really fun. And then, I've been out to visit a couple of times, and I don't know. I really like them. I like working with them. I like what they're doing. Because I grew up in Indiana, like, I like seeing something like this in Indiana, which when I was growing up, and I wasn't in Indianapolis, I was in southern Indiana, like kind of near Louisville, Kentucky, but there was nothing like this at all anywhere near me. And I try to imagine what it would have been like if there had been. So yeah, it's kind of amazing.
It really is. Oh gosh, yeah. And what will viewers encounter in your upcoming show, Shrines of the Luminous Halo?
Well, so Shrines of the Luminous Halo is a painting show. So there's very, very new paintings. And I mean, I think the oldest painting in that show is a couple of years old, but they're all from this series of still lifes that I've been working on, that are these, kind of altars or shrines or offerings. It's kind of what I'm calling them. And they are their arrangements of objects that have all these different references to the histories and the people and the things that I've been kind of talking about all this time. But yeah, like it's a room of those paintings, and I don't know. I think I'm excited. I think it'll be a great show of I don't know, of work that I'm really proud of work that like has taken me a while to get to, and I'm hoping that even though Indianapolis is a place where I can't say that I know a lot of people right now, I'm hoping that, people will come to this and see themselves in it and see these, like I said, I came from this place. So like, I'm hoping that there are these references and things that people will catch.
Yeah, definitely. And how did the exhibition title, The Shrines of the Luminous Halo, come about?
So Shalta came up with that title, and it's a Virginia Woolf reference, and it's kind of like she had written about the Shrines of the Luminous Halo being a sort of bubble that surrounds a person, like I think from birth till death, but it's like kind of all the things that are like in their wake or in their world over that time. And I think when she saw these paintings, she kind of saw them as these little bubble worlds. And I thought it was really appropriate, and I really loved the Virginia Woolf reference. So yeah, that's how that came about.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll have to look into that book. Oh, yes. And so I think walking through the exhibition, is there anything you'd like to highlight in terms of specific paintings or moments for visitors who will be checking out the work?
There is one painting that's called like the Toolbox for the Future that it was a painting that was being used a lot in the marketing for the show, and I really love that painting, and I feel like it was actually sort of like the beginning of my thoughts that ended up being the beginning, whatever the beginning is. It was something that really contributed to the vision for the Salon for Possible Futures that's up right now at the Nerman Museum here in we're not in Kansas, but Kansas is nearby. But that painting, it's like a rolling cart, like a library rolling cart with books and with plants and like just different objects arranged in the space. But that was where I was like kind of pulling together things that felt like the stuff I would want to like take with me if I needed to like survive in a way. And that ended up being sort of the premise of that salon, was like kind of creating I was calling it an anti-bunker, like space where, things could be shared and people could connect and develop their relationships and things for the future. And anyway, that was like a beginning genesis with that idea, was part of this painting. And then, I don't know, let's see, there are other paintings that are, again, like more recent. There's the painting that's like the yellow wallpaper painting, which is one of the newer paintings in the show. And there's some obvious references. There's a lot of literary references, actually. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, books and then the yellow wallpaper, and like that is like a painting that thinks a lot about like mental health and the way that mental health is I guess both received in the way that it is experienced by women specifically. And there's a lot of references in that painting to different like female historical figures that may have had, different I don't know, what do I want to say? Like they were treated a certain way because of things that they went through, called crazy, called hysterical, like, but had real reasons for the things that they were experiencing. And then there are like more personal references to like my own family that, maybe there were things that were never fully addressed, or it never felt like appropriate to talk about or to think about even. And so anyway, I really love that painting. And I think, I don't know, when I sit with it, there's a lot of things about, this moment. I feel like society is like trying to more directly address and be aware of those kinds of issues. But because there have been like decades and decades of not dealing with things, it's sort of like we're having this moment of having to reconcile a lot of things at once. And that painting is kind of addressing that for me.
Ah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a painting that I'd love to see. I was like, I can't wait.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's got a reference to that beheading of Judith painting. And I don't know, just all of these things that like, it feels a little violent, that painting, because I feel ragey. I feel mad about the fact that, I don't know, all of this stuff has like been repressed for so long, for women, for people in general. But like, I definitely am like emphasizing the experience of women. And I think, I don't know, in my paintings, there's a lot of references to like sort of decorative design and craft and like these aesthetic attributes that I feel like were also like very feminized, like not like there's never been a man to use a basket, but baskets are somehow female or like, and so there's a lot of those kinds of elements in the work too, because I grew up in a family that was like heavily influenced by craft. A lot of people making things, making quilts, making cake decorating or flower arrangement, or maybe making clothes, and so anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of those items in the still lifes, not necessarily like specific things made by my people, but just things that I know somebody's family made, and like they have become anonymous. You know what I mean? Like people don't necessarily know like, oh, that's like you would walk up to a Hilma af Klint and you would know it's a Hilma af Klint, but you would never know who made like that quilt you found at the antique mall or whatever. And I feel like for my own art historical like canon, those things are just as important. So I'm referencing them a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that when I think about, these objects that you might find in like a museum context, like a basket installation, often they're not attributed to an individual, but it's like unknown maker.
Right. And Dec Arts has its whole own wing, and it's like, these are decorative. And I'm like, yeah, but they're also like, this was a part of somebody's daily life. Like it was like integrated into their world in a way that, we don't think of art objects as being that. They're like these revered things that go on a wall and you have distance from, And I guess I like the idea of living up close with my art, with the art objects that I surround myself with. I'm a little less precious, I guess. And so I don't know. I'm also just trying to represent them in these paintings, I think, like, and put them out there in a context where they end up in the museum anyway, But.
Yes, yeah. One other aspect of the Nerman exhibition I was thinking about is really the idea of like challenging norms in museum space. Of course, there's the rule of no touching in every museum. And the Salon for Possible Futures really asks the viewers to be curious and tap into their sense of discovery. So I think when I was there a couple weekends ago, there's this little child who's about 7 years old, and she was so excited to open every single drawer, completely just like so hyped, and asked her mom if she could live in there.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because so obviously the salon is not what's happening at Big Car, but just to add some description to it, yeah, it's an immersive installation. It's a living room. It looks like one of my paintings, but it's like a 3-dimensional space. And there are a lot of elements that you're meant to touch, you're meant to take away, you're meant to leave something. It's a very reciprocal space is how I would describe it. And, that installation, it took me 2 years to conceptualize and realize that installation, and it will be up at the museum for 2 years in the end. And where I'm at with it now is I'm kind of trying to imagine. There was a moment where I thought I was going to try to conceptualize some pieces for this show at Big Car that would have some elements of that, that immersive touch. And I'm still trying to figure out how to scale that, so that it's not because in this case, it's the whole room. And it's just a massive undertaking, but I'm trying to imagine how to create, a one-off mini installation, a piece of furniture in the room that you can interact with, and in the way that the room works, in the way that the installation at the museum works. So that's kind of what's next for me. I think I'm trying to work through a vision for that. That's something that somebody could install without me there, because that's another hurdle with that. It's there are lots of artists who, have maps and plans for work and somebody else will install it. That's a newer thing for me. So I'm trying to work through exactly what it would take to put something like that together. But I feel like that's what's coming next for me, is to have more of those installation elements in conversation with the paintings, because I think there is a through line. There's absolutely a thread, and they sort of feed each other. So trying to find ways to realize that is sort of on the docket.
Yeah, nice. That will be an exciting thing to see. And what's happening in your studio at the current moment?
Yeah. Well, okay. So obviously I've been working up to this show, so it's been a lot of painting. And I have another exhibition opening at Tugboat Gallery in Lincoln in December. So I'm working on that exhibition as well. And that is also painting. So a lot of painting, painting. And then I am, like I said, thinking about these 3-dimensional pieces and how to realize them and where and when I would realize that. And I have a show planned in Milwaukee in April of next year. And I'm thinking that exhibition will be that. I'm hoping to be in a place where that can be both, where that will be the paintings and some of the objects, and I can kind of get a taste for what it is to have them living in space together. And then, so I think those are the more immediate things. And then, I don't know. I'm also working with you on that show to do with ICI, which is Independent Curators International, about artist-run spaces. And so I'm excited about that. I think that is also maybe an instance where I'm trying to imagine a mini installation or a sculptural piece that would maybe speak more to archiving artist-run spaces and that kind of experience. So I'm excited about all that stuff. It's an interesting time right now because I do feel certain parts of my practice that have always been separate, painting and installation work and admin work, all these things used to be or curating, because I do curating, all of those things have been very separate. And this feels like a moment where they're trying to come together. And it's hard for me because I'm not fully sure how to reconcile all of that yet, but I feel like it's happening. So that's
incredible. There's so many things going on.
Yes, many, many things. And also I don't know, just maybe not as much time as I or anyone would like to work on all of those things, but it definitely feels like a positive energy of things, like starting to happen and starting to move in the right direction. And I feel like there's this thing about the art process where, at least for myself, like I've never been a person who like drew out an exact, like I like to plan, right? But I never expect my plans to be the same from beginning to end. Like I'll start with an idea, or I'll start with a sort of notion of where things are headed, and then I just start, and sometimes it can be really like nerve-wracking because you don't know exactly where it's going to go. And I feel like that's the stage I'm in right now, where a lot of things are moving, and I feel in my gut that it's right and it's going in the right direction. I'm also like I cannot fully see where it's headed, and that's kind of terrifying. Like, it feels like a big leap of faith. Like, okay, we're just gonna keep moving one foot in front of the other and see where this walk goes, But I think that I know that certain elements are present, and that makes me feel like, oh, okay, this is what we want. We're just gonna walk in the direction of what we want, and more things will become clear as we go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's no fixed fixed notion of anything. And I think learning from you in our time at Charlotte Street, I really admired the multiple angles that you look from, and not necessarily having that like exact I was like, there's no finite one answer, but just like so many different iterative processes to look at something.
I know that it can be really frustrating for people when I'm like, no, there's no right answer. Like, particularly for my students. Like, they want an answer. But I feel like, I don't know, like I am one of those people that really believes in the journey, and it's like, I feel like the journey will inform the outcome. And that's something that I've just gotten more and more comfortable with over time. And I'm old now, man. I'm like 46. I'm like, I've lived enough life that I'm like, I see these patterns and cycles, and like, oh, I do reference that a lot in the imagery too, with patterns. Like, it's just this idea of things repeating, and they're not exactly the same. Like, it's not like a machine produced pattern. Like there's glitches, and there's things that are not exact. And I think that's really important to me in terms of like, kind of representing a truism about life or experience. Like, there are things that repeat, but it's never exactly the same. But I feel like I've come to trust the cycle, It's like there are moments in the cycle that are really scary. There are moments in the cycle that require a lot of you, and then there are moments where you understand why. And so I think I kind of like hang on to that.
Yes, and everything will come to life.
I mean, it sounds so woo-woo. Yeah. I know it does.
No, but I mean, it's true.
But I believe it. I feel like I've just come to like to trust those feelings more. I think that, there's another like weird, I don't know if I would call this a criticism, but something I think about in relationship to the art world, which is that, the art world that has become like high value, like monetarily speaking, like there is sort of like a historic pattern of, like kind of when MFA programs became popular and became a thing, and there was it was a monetization, right, of like art at a certain level, like being able to say, this person's work, they have completed an MFA. So like they're at this new level, or like, then that work would get scooped up by certain galleries, and that, so all that to say, like there's a certain like academic approach in some of those spaces, because there's a desire to create something that is objectively good, like whatever objectively good art is. Like there are like these like rubrics, right? Like people are like, oh, is it talking about something really important? Is it like, formally, is it doing these things, And I feel like I'm all for education, and I don't personally have an MFA, but I wish I did. I would have loved to have gotten an MFA. I just was working at the time and was not able to like really break away to like go do that. But I think I like sort of sigh at what I think was a loss that came from trying to make art overly academic, because there's a lot of work that I think was not seen as credible because it maybe leaned more into emotions, or it maybe was more personal, or and I know that for decades there were professors and people telling you that like you had to have this objective approach to art, and that it couldn't be about your feelings, and that and I also feel like that's a very male thing that happened. And so I kind of push against that notion. I'm like, the kind of art that I like, the kind of art that I respond to is always very like charged emotionally and like visually. And so anyway, where was I going with all that? But I think I guess I just wanted to say that like I feel like everybody that makes art makes it for different reasons. Everybody that looks at art responds to it for different reasons. But the work that I am like excited about like does have like passion in it somehow. And I don't know, those are just the things that I'm looking for in an art experience. And I'm okay with the fact that that might not square with, like the sort of intellectual approach to art that I like to be smart too. But that's just not what I get out of art, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always really like looking at art that reflects the maker and their values. And I think that I was like, there's definitely different moments of like, I just want to go see an exhibition for fun and just like enjoy it all. And that's it. And then other moments where I just want to be like challenged and provoked in different ways. Yeah. So I feel like there's room for all of it.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think I might just be like a dopamine junkie. Like, I feel like I really want to have big feelings, and like work that makes me have big feelings, like will catch my attention, you know? And yeah, like I can totally swear that that's not what everybody wants to get out of an art experience. But I think that's what I want, and what I'm always trying to like make happen somehow, whether it is like the community-based work or the paintings, or it's like that's where it's coming from. And I hope that like the reaction that people have, it's probably not the exact same thing that I have when I'm putting all that energy into it, but I hope they do feel something.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kimi. It's been great chatting with you.